Hello, I'm Kathleen Petticord. Welcome to the Retired Overseas podcast. Today, I'm speaking with retired U.S. military veteran John Davis. John is the author of the book Veterans in Paradise, a guide for veterans seeking peace, fun, better health, and cheaper living. John joins us from his home in the Dominican Republic. Welcome, John. Thank you very much for taking time to join us today.
Thanks, Kathleen. I'm super pumped to talk about veterans and life abroad.
Super. Let's focus in now on your going overseas experience. And can you tell us, how did this idea occur to you in the first place? Where did you get the idea, okay, I'm struggling now that I'm back home in the United States. I'm going to move overseas. I'm going to the Dominican Republic. How did that happen?
I think every expat, whether you're a veteran or whether you're not, has like a unique expat origin story. And for me, it was one, it was divorce. I think divorce is a good impetus for a new fresh start for anyone's life. Two, I was struggling mentally in my current environment. I knew something had to change. And three, it was kind of luck of the draw to where the Dominican Republic, where I'm at now, was one of the only countries accepting tourists during COVID. So I was really stressed out during COVID, being so locked down, by myself, isolated. So I came to the Dominican Republic for a vacation, and the Dominican Republic was fairly open compared to any other countries. And then when I got here, my cortisol levels dropped. I felt healthier. I started sleeping through the night. I started swimming in the ocean. And then I saw kind of this transformation in myself. And I thought to myself, okay, how much, I had written other books about veteran stuff before, but then it really played into how much your environment gets into your mental health. And there is a significant mental health crisis in the Western world, especially for Americans. It doesn't matter who you are. You kind of, that stress is just kind of in the air. And some of it's like political stress. And one big thing for me, escaping the political chaos, the political division, you kind of get, when you get physical distance from it, it provides psychological distance. And just kind of forgetting about that in your day-to-day life, for me personally, has been a big reward of moving and living abroad.
Yes, for sure. And you're right. That's relevant for anyone who is who's at a turning point in their life for whatever reason. Now, let's talk about the fun part of this, which is the destinations. And in your article, you identify and talk about 5 countries that you think are at the top of the list, should be at the top of the list, specifically for retired military thinking about going overseas. And of course, number 1 is Dominican Republic, where you are. And why would you say that? What is so appealing about the Dominican Republic?
There are a few different things that really make the Dominican Republic stand out as a great destination for veterans. One of the things we just mentioned was the healthcare options for veterans here, that those are already plugged in and you can just walk in and get the healthcare that you need. The second thing that's actually kind of big for me is I hate bureaucracy. I hate paperwork, and the visa aspect of being an expat can be one of the most frustrating things that you're going to go through when it comes to that. I had spent a lot of time in Thailand prior as well, and every 90 days I had to leave the country and then come back. You have issues like that. Here in the Dominican Republic, there is no need to do any visa paperwork or anything like that. You just pay an exit fee when you leave, depending how long you stay. So somewhere like Colombia, you cannot spend more than 6 months a year. Mexico, you can't spend more than 6 months there. Panama has similar rules like that. The Dominican Republic stands alone, and Peru is kind of like that too, where you just pay a fee depending on how long you stay. So if a veteran comes here, all you have to do, you can stay here for 2 years, and when you leave, you're going to have to pay like $250 to the Dominican government as like a tax when you leave. And it's no big deal. So that kind of helps me out a lot, just because I'm like, I don't want to do the paperwork.
Okay, that's a really interesting point. And just to clarify for people listening, because we talk a lot about residency and visa options. And so you're making the point, you didn't want to deal with that. And fair enough. You're right. It's a process. It's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape, and it's an expense. It can be expensive. And she thought, I'm not doing that. But in the Dominican Republic, you don't have to. You can come and go and pay this fee, this fine, as you come and go. And that would not be true everywhere, but it's definitely true some places. You're right. And especially if you're not looking to retire full-time indefinitely to a place. And that's where, if you want to be able to stay in a place, I'm making the point for everyone listening, if you want to be able to stay in a place full-time indefinitely, you're going to need to invest in a residency visa program, or you're going to run into trouble. It's sooner or later, you're going to run into trouble. That will be expensive. And that could mean you get kicked out of the country and you can't come back. And so,
and we have a lot of Canadians here as well, because we have, Haiti is once an island, lots of people speaking French here. So we do have a lot of Canadians here that come here for like 6 months of the year and then go back. And a lot of Americans do the same thing, because like you mentioned, it's an easy place to come here for like 4 or 5 months if you're trying to go back and forth.
right, exactly. Okay, so that's a great benefit. So the healthcare, the option, the easy option for just sticking around basically without going through the whole residency process. Then I guess just the overall quality of life, which is, it's the Caribbean. So you're living a very relaxed,
Island life. And then
island
for
life.
me, one of the things I think that is good for people is we have such good proximity to the United States here. So you're not that far away. You can be back in I could be back in the United States tomorrow if I needed to. And my mother's a little bit older, so I like to be closer in case something were to happen. We're on the East Coast time zone, so it's more appealing for me to be somewhere like this instead of like in the Philippines or Thailand or whatever. And then the weather here is awesome. I live on the North Coast, and where I'm at, one of the things that people think about Dominican Republic is hurricanes. Where I live on the North Coast, we've never had a recorded hurricane, because we're kind of in this little microclimate right here. Whereas Punta Cana, Puerto Rico, and some of the other parts of the island, of the Dominican Republic get hurricanes. Where I live on the North Coast, if you look at our map, like Puerto Plata, Cabarete, and Sosua, there's no hurricanes here. We still get storms, of course, but no hurricanes.
Right.
We kind of have a good climate option for that. And then for me, I love to scuba dive. So this is a great place to scuba dive. And one of the things when you move abroad is you actually have time to do your hobbies. You have time to read books. You have time to relax. You have time to play golf, which I like to do as well. So having time to do those things, opposed to in the United States, where it's just a never ending to-do list, and the tasks just keep tack it on and tack it on and tack it on. Whereas when you're abroad, you get to control the most valuable thing, which is your time.
Awesome. Oh, all right. Number 2 on your list is the Philippines, and that was one place I was aware where veterans can access healthcare, et cetera, and use their VA benefits. What would be and they speak English in the Philippines,
Yeah.
which is a big plus. You just mentioned a downside for the Philippines, which is it's far away. It's on the other side of the world. Whereas in the DR, you're just on the U.S. doorstep and can hop back when you need or want to. What else would you highlight for the Philippines? Also a hugely affordable choice, I guess.
Yep. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head with those 2 points. Is one, English speaking thing. So a lot of people might not want to come to a Spanish speaking country if they're not willing to learn Spanish or don't want to feel uncomfortable. So the fact that everyone in the Philippines speaks English is a huge plus to, especially people who are maybe a little bit older and they're like,
Right.
if you're 60 years old, I don't want to learn another language, So if you go there, everyone speaks English. And then you have a built-in veteran community there, because we had military bases there. I think they're actually
Right.
another military base there. So you have those resources that a military base would provide. You have veteran of foreign wars posts in the Philippines and the American Legion. And the Philippines is cheaper than a place like the Dominican Republic. So the Dominican Republic is probably like 25% more expensive than the Philippines would be. I went there and did an article on the Philippines and talked to some veterans there and met with the veterans groups. And it's a great place for veterans, especially if you're into like nature and beaches. To me, one of the downsides of the Philippines, I didn't think the food was very good, like compared to like Thailand and compared to like Mexico or some of the other expat destinations in the world. I wasn't
Good
crazy.
point. That's a good, important point, right? All right. Yeah. Number 3 on your list is Panama. So have you spent time in Panama?
I've just like for a vacation. I haven't spent any significant time there. So I haven't like got into a lot of the stuff, but I've talked to many veterans that live in Panama, and it's always on like top of the list for expat destinations. And it has been for like a long time.
Yeah.
So they have some healthcare resources there for veterans. They have some veteran groups there and a big veteran population from, the Panama
Canal. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, and right, so we talk about Panama all the time. They use the dollar, so you don't have any exchange rate risk. You were mentioning earlier, it takes an adjustment to learn to do the currency exchange when you move to the DR, for example. You don't have to worry about that here. There's a very big expat community, retired expat community, and as you say, military expat community here in Panama, and very welcoming. So you can very easily connect and become part of that world, and it's very accessible. It's also, a good hub, a good base if you want to come and go from the United States. Number 4 on your list is Thailand, which is another destination that's going to put you on the other side of the world. But what would you say are the pluses for Thailand?
Thailand is one of the most healing cultures to me, and especially for people that might be like, for my community with veterans who might be struggling with PTSD or something like that. Thailand is very safe, which is great as well. And you have the Buddhism, you got the temples, you got the healthy food, you got the cheap aspect, all those things. And Thailand also is one of the healthiest places when it comes to things like you can get a massage every day, like everyone's famous Thai massages. You get great food. You have all these affordable health options that are there that they kind of get into. Like people go there for cosmetic surgeries and things like that. So Thailand is great when it comes to top of line healthcare, especially for like expat healthcare. I mean, I don't know if it's one of the best places in the world to get like really good healthcare at a very low cost. And then Thailand also for the veteran community, they have VFW posts there. And when you're in that part of the world, when you're in Thailand or the Philippines or something like that, one of the great things you can do is it's very easy to travel country to country. So if you're in Thailand, it's very easy to go to the Philippines or Vietnam or Cambodia or Laos or Korea or whatever. So a lot of the veterans that live there, it's great to travel within the country itself. Then also you have kind of fun vacations you can do, and then the safety aspect is I think a big part of it as well.
Yeah, I like that you led with it's a very healing place, and I feel the same way about Thailand. It is spiritually.
That's it, spiritual country.
Yeah. Okay, and number 5, you highlight Costa Rica, and why do you put that so high up on your list?
The nature. I think that Costa Rica has some of the most beautiful nature, and I think that one of the things that we've done in the Western world is separate ourselves a lot from nature. So if you go to Costa Rica, it has some of the same aspects of Panama as far as accessibility, as far as travel, but the nature to me in Costa Rica stands out. There's also in San Jose, there's an American Legion there, so you have a pretty good veteran community already built in, and Costa Rica is very accepting of expats. I think I saw like 10% of the country in Costa Rica is like expats. There's a huge expat population. One of the downsides of Costa Rica now is it's gotten a lot more expensive. So Costa Rica, the prices have gone up in recent years, opposed to like Panama, which has kind of stayed level or seems to compare to the rest of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Panama City has gotten expensive. I wouldn't, Panama City, I wouldn't call cheap anymore. But outside the city, in other parts of the country, the interior, as Panamanians refer to most of the rest of their country outside the city, can still be really, really affordable. And, Panama and Costa Rica share a border, and Costa Ricans will cross the border, come into Panama to shop in those nearby border towns because it's so much cheaper. So many things are so much cheaper in Panama.
And another interesting thing about Costa Rica that, I guess you'll probably do know, but Costa Rica is one of the only countries in the world that doesn't have a military. So for a lot of people a lot of people like me that spend our lives in the military, like I spent every day of my 20s in the military, going back and forth to Afghanistan. Sometimes you want to disconnect from that military mentality. So if you go to a country that doesn't have a military, they kind of have a peaceful vibe, like the pura vida culture, the pure life that's always there. And then you have things like surfing that's really big there. A lot of veterans get into fishing, which I think is a great hobby for anybody. So Costa Rica is one of the, I think one of the top countries for veterans to think about retiring as well, anybody. It's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd agree. And so you are spreading this message of hope and rebirth and inspiration, and it's really also impressive, and I'm so glad that we found you, or you found us, however we connected. And you make your book available at no charge. Is that right? So it's
Yep, 100% for free. So there is a physical copy available on Amazon. And people buy that too, because a lot of people like to have an actual book in their hand. And I think
Exactly. Yeah.
actual book. I mean, anyone who's over the age of like 25 would prefer like a physical book. But I make the digital copy for free, and that's also good because you can kind of search in it. You can click around in things. It has a lot of links and resources in it for things like healthcare abroad, for different organizations like the VFW in the Philippines. I have their link. Facebook groups of this or that or whatever. So being able to link those things, great. But if you're a veteran and you want to contact me on social media, I will send you the book at no charge, no problem. My blog also has a lot of articles as well, because for me, it's not necessarily about like making money selling books. It's about helping veterans.
Okay. Thank you so much, John. It's really a delight to talk to you. I'm so glad that we got to know you. And I hope we can continue the conversation, and we'll look forward to you continuing to contribute with us and maybe participate in some of our future conferences. I think you have a great message, and we would love to help you spread it as far and wide as we can. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We really appreciate your time and attention today, and we hope this was helpful. I will be back next month with the next edition of Retired Overseas. Thanks all. Bye-bye.